welcome to another episode of the Smite Noob podcast. We're gonna have a great show for you today, guys. We're gonna be joined again at the start by Kevin. We're gonna talk about some league general stuff and news. Then afterwards, we're gonna be joined by a few EU Godlike folk, and we're gonna make a player tier list for the EU Godlike division. So without further ado, let's get started. Kevin, how you doing?
I'm doing fine. Kind of busy with university, but other than that, I'm doing very well. How are you?
Yeah, same, kind of getting stuck in with university and all the projects and stuff, but otherwise, yeah, pretty well.
Yeah.
Been winning our games pretty much, our series. Lost,
Yeah.
dropped 2 games, not too bad as a whole. We didn't play a game last week because unfortunately the enemy team forfeit, but
Yeah, they didn't have enough players.
and they didn't want, we like talked to them about getting more subs than a lot even, but yeah, they didn't want to really do it. But yeah, anyways, it's been going pretty well for the league as well and everything. It's been progressing quite nicely, and yeah. First things first, let's talk a bit about the podcast and our plans, maybe moving on in the future. Like we're thinking that we don't really have enough content to talk about if we do it weekly because, well, the others. I mean, obviously, one game is played per week by each team, and we mainly have knowledge about the U divisions. We're not like extremely knowledgeable on the any ones, so we can't really talk too much about them. And yeah, so we're thinking more about moving it to like bi-weekly or like at least a couple times a month style
Yeah,
podcast
exactly.
where we're gonna have a lot more content for you guys in an episode than rather just than some episode being like 30 minutes and then others being like an hour long or even more. We're gonna have like more condensed and concentrated content that we can talk about and discuss on the show. So yeah, pretty much that, right? Yeah, we're gonna probably move into this more regular basis, so to say, podcast style, right?
Yeah, exactly. Just don't feel like it's beneficial to just make podcasts for the sake of having it on a weekly basis and then just fill it with like stuff that's not really interesting.
Yeah,
And we rather just do it on a bi-weekly basis for like maybe 2 times a month, or maybe even like only have one, but just have like a very good episode compared to just having weekly shitty ones.
yeah, like a big recap of what's been happening, perhaps, or something like that. Yeah. But yeah, also as I said earlier, we don't really have much knowledge on the NA side of things. Like both you and I, we know people in the EU divisions, but we don't really know anybody in the NA divisions except for you, I guess the Audacity guys you've spoken to, and for me, yeah, pretty much no one. So we can't really talk too much about NA. We can just like look at results and talk about that, but that's not really like I think that's something you guys can do in Euro, so it's not really interesting content either. We think, I mean, like, if we're wrong, I guess just let us know in the comment section, but I think most of you would agree as well. But yeah, so that's why our podcast is mainly focused on new teams and new stuff because we have just a lot more knowledge and we can just talk about them in quite more detail than we can about NA. Of course, we're gonna try and here and there get some mini guests to help us with some NA tier lists. We also want to do some NA tier lists and see what their guests think. But again, we have like no knowledge, so our input is gonna be pretty much very very little. So yeah. No, this we just wanted to quickly say why our podcast has been mainly focused on the new side of things and not so much on the
Yeah,
NA part,
exactly.
even though NA scene is going very strong. A lot more teams and divisions there, but yeah, we just have a lot more in-depth knowledge about the EU scene than we do about the NA one. So yeah, just to clear the air on that one, it's not like we're entirely EU biased or anything like that. We just have more knowledge, so we can't really talk too much about any.
Yeah, we would just be talking crap really if we
Yeah,
would talk about it. We really need guests, and we had a few guests, but I think we just need to find a way to set it up properly so that the guests like are like the centerpiece of the show because they can actually talk about what's going on, and me and even would just be like bystanders. So we gotta look into that a little more.
yeah, we have to figure out a concept or like a idea that would work for that style of show, where the
Yeah,
guests are more
yeah, yeah,
the main point of the show, and we're just there to just like toss in a few words, a few questions, maybe. But yeah, other than that, yeah, we were hoping to get so many episodes sometime in the future, but yeah, they're probably gonna be, well, they're definitely gonna be a lot rarer, and as a whole, our content is gonna be a lot more EU focused. because of the reasons for aforementioned. Another thing we're gonna talk about is some discussions you and the Dust guys have been having for the second split, which is gonna begin, I guess, somewhere after the first one, which ends early June.
Yeah, by
So
the mid of June.
yeah, some probably like I was gonna say mid of June or something like that. Yeah. So can you shed a light a bit on what's been going on in those conversations?
Yeah, we have been talking about teams dropping out and leaving, and
Yeah,
part of that is teams not having enough players or like losing, like just
just
disbanding because
people.
of disagreements and not being
Yeah,
able to get new players.
or people giving
And
up midway when they're like, okay, I
yeah,
don't want to play, and then they can't find a replacement because there's not the free agency zone is not done yet or something, or
yeah, exactly. So we have talked about what's coming up to fix that a bit, but we also have been thinking to add a buy-in. And the interesting thing with the buy-in is that it could support me and the Audacity guys getting casters to actually cast the games. Because at the moment it kind of fell apart a little bit, the casting, because it's just a lot of work
yeah,
and not everybody wants to cast. And having buy-ins would help with supporting the league, creating that content, and it would also help teams not drop out as easily because then they have like, oh shit, I paid like a tenner to join, so I'm gonna finish this split. So you get more committed people if you have a buy-in. That's what we're talking about. We're not sure yet, so we might not have it, but it's a thing that's being talked about, and we're gonna definitely ask everyone about it.
yeah. So what do you guys think? If, for example, for like a buy-in, you said a tenner, is that like the is it a
Yeah,
tenner
it's
per
gonna be like a
team or a
minimum,
tenner
and
per
then
player, or how is it gonna work even?
it's gonna be per team. So
Yeah. Okay. So you can put together your team can put together like a tenner or something and
yeah.
buy into the turn. But what happens then if, for example, how you guys thought about what happens if somebody leaves or gets kicked? That's
No, yeah, it's just a team. The team pays at the beginning a
okay.
tenner, and then that's the team's like sign up money, really. Um,
Okay.
and then they get to compete for 14 weeks.
Yep. Do you guys feel you have enough I guess teams that would support this decision? I guess you said you're gonna ask
We're not
around.
sure yet. I'm gonna do the survey this Tuesday.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'll know like in a few weeks, in like a week or two, when everybody has filled in the survey.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, obviously, it has to be discussed, and it's an interesting approach. But I think obviously not everybody's gonna be for it because not everybody wants to commit financially, even if it's like not that much money.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, we don't know the people's situation, so every like cent could matter to people. I mean, some people for sure they need every cent, right? So it could create weird situations, but hopefully, if it's implemented, it's gonna go over smoothly and it's gonna be like accepted by everyone, or at least the majority, to make sure it's sustainable and use like helpful rather than harmful to the league.
yeah, exactly. Nicely put.
Yeah. Well, another thing we're gonna talk about, which is kind of connected to what you're saying, is the teams dropping out as well, right? From a lot of NA teams I heard dropped out, and some NA teams are being moved up as well, right? Can you talk a little bit
Yeah.
about those changes?
So in NA,
Yeah.
we have moved two teams up to demigod, and one team up from the bottom division to the hero one because they were like overperforming heavily, and they personally requested it to be moved up.
Yeah.
Um, and as well, for some teams, we just were already keeping an eye on them because they were like performing very, very well. Just like they were having absurd games, they were
In
having
like
like
the lowest divisions and stuff, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah. So yeah, some teams they moved up. They took vacant spots in the schedule. They got to keep half of their earned points. So one team they had like 12 points. They now have 6.
Okay.
Just to keep it fair, because we were thinking if we take away all points, it's all for naught. But if we let them keep all their points, then it's a bit unfair for the teams that are already there. So
Yeah.
we decided to do half, and I think it worked
Yeah,
out
that
pretty
makes
decent.
sense also because it's like halfway through the season, right? So
Yeah,
um, we can assume that if they were in the lower divisions, you can sort of assume that they would have won if they won pretty much like as you said 6 game or they had 12 points or something. Yeah, you can assume they've won in the upper division. They would have won like half of their games, so that's obviously like half of the points, six
Yeah,
points, and then perhaps well yeah, I mean they still have like the second part of the split to perform on at their best. And as I said, I mean I think the most important thing is that the person even requested it themselves. So that's really good to because I mean obviously it helps competition as well in the upper division, also improving the competitiveness of other teams that might have been getting stomped or like beaten pretty hard by those teams in the lower divisions by giving them
yeah,
a fighting chance against other teams that are more suited to their skill level, I guess. So yeah, that's I think a really positive, really beneficial change.
yeah. And the nice thing at NA is that we have that many divisions, so we can make the move pretty easily.
Yeah, for NA it's quite easy, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, and obviously, like for EU, it's a bit harder. As I said, you have a lot of divisions for in NA, and in EU, you only have two divisions. And obviously, the skill level in both divisions is a bit murky. Like maybe there are some teams that are too strong for a division, or some teams that are too weak for a division. And but that's just unfortunately what it has to be for now, for the first season of EU, where we don't have too many teams signed up.
yeah,
Um,
exactly.
because yeah, obviously we only have enough for basically two divisions, and I mean, initially it was tried to be balanced as best as possible. But yeah, some teams have grown a lot stronger than expected, perhaps, and others have well had a bit of a slump. Um,
Yeah, exactly. Nicely put as well. Yeah,
yeah, so pretty much yeah, that's a bit of a imbalance in the EU scales in both divisions. But I think there's at the end of the day there's at least a few teams that compete against each other in each division. So that's pretty interesting to see.
yeah,
It's not all not all doom and gloom, but yeah, I mean, obviously, if we're gonna be looking at the future probably to balance it out more, perhaps. Yeah, if we get more teams signed up for sure, it's gonna help balance it out. And I think with the free agency aspect coming into perhaps into play for next playthrough, we'll see when. It's gonna help a lot of teams find players and maybe like teams form off free agents that want to just play, but they don't know like five people they can play with, and they just want to sign up as a free agent, and then that's hopefully gonna, as we talked last week, help create more teams to be added, especially to you, where it's would be much appreciated or much needed to make the divisions more balanced. But overall,
yeah,
I think it's going pretty well for the first season over, for the first split rather I should say. And yeah, I mean, Godlike division is pretty close, especially like the top of the table is a bit set, but I think the middle of the table is really nail biting as well as for our division. Actually, there are three teams that are doing like really well and are at the top, and then there's some teams on the rise that are coming up from midfield to challenge the top three teams. So it's gonna be
yeah,
interesting second half of the split for sure.
yeah. And then the point of the Godlike, we're gonna have the player tier lists in a little bit.
Yeah, we're gonna have the player to listen a little bit, and I'm gonna be joined by some godlike folk because they have much more insight than we do. And oh yeah, I guess we'll see when we're here with them.
Yeah,
Right. Welcome back to the second segment. Was meant to be a really good segment. On this My New Bleak podcast, this episode that we're making a godlike tier list with some people from the godlike division, which were CloverUK, ReadySaltedSean, and EddyKing. Unfortunately, though, that recording was corrupted and didn't work. So a lot of the insights and comments that were made by the amazing gentleman that joined us are lost, unfortunately. And really sucks. Just gonna yeah, it's mainly my fault. I'm gonna make sure next time the videos are recorded properly and everything is fine. But unfortunately, I made a mistake this time around, and we're not gonna get the great insight. I'm just gonna quickly, I guess, go over what happened and what was this mainly discussed. It's gonna be a quick summary mainly of what happened. Unfortunately, due to I mean, we must not want to take any more of their time, of course, and yeah, kind of really an unfortunate situation. So let's start, I guess, with the Soul Lane, where we had a good discussion about the players. Unfortunately, one big point that's going to be noticed throughout the tier list is Team Soul Farm's rankings. Unfortunately, none of the boys we had on the show had really played against that team because they didn't show up in the initial games against Eddie or Sean team, and also I don't think Clover had any experience to play pretty much against them. So Wing Mao, 69 takes up the last place. Vicentius in the sack again, not too much information on him. Uh, then we can move up a bit. CloverUK, of course, he was a guest on the show. He described himself pretty fair, um, as a pretty solid player that has some issues. And so he thought he should be around the middle of the pack. And most of the other people also agreed, so that's where he's sitting at fifth place. Jackie recently swapped from support back to what is also originally his soul lane or main role in soul lane. Yeah, he potentially has some godpo issues. Godpo issues is what was discussed with the boys. So we're not too sure, and we just put him in fourth. Max, which is a newcomer on the in squad team. He's coming in pretty hyped up. Mainly playing a lot of assassins, but also playing some warriors. According to Sean and Eddie, from what I've seen and played against. Because Eddie had filled in a scrim again, or in actually a league game, when in squad were actually previously in the lower division, but now they've been promoted to the upper division. While at the team that EddyKing was formerly on, now known as Fools Gamers, have moved down to Divine Division. Due to player strength and both the wish seems to make the swap happen, and I think it was pretty fair according to well, with the in squad changing four of their five players pretty much. Getting new people in that are pretty stronger than the previous team members. Milano was play second. Was discussed to be one of the best soul laners by far, together with Comrade Posh Boy, who they pretty much described him as a beast and a really strong player. Then we can move on to the jungle tier list. Arbery, not too much is unfortunately known about him. Um, he's 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 a pretty solid player from what they said. I remember them saying, and but yeah, unfortunately, it's a pretty stacked row, so he just moves down to the seventh place. Ario, Clover's teammate, he did say the guy's pretty lovely to play with, but he did kind of say that for pretty much all of his teammates. Um, yeah, he's a solid player. The L'Oreal, from Team Solo Farm again, the team that not much information was known about, unfortunately. This team, yeah, from what people have heard from Sean, it's what Sean mentioned is that he'd heard that Laura was perhaps their best player and a very strong player for sure. And I think Team Solar Farm have had pretty strong performances ever since they've actually started playing their games. Um, Other than that, we move on to Draconic Ace. Again, a new member of In Squad who's been pretty strong performer. When I played against him, he was on Humbats, and I think Sukiyumi the second game, he had pretty strong performance. When in a scrim, he also has been performing well from what Sean and Eddie have seen. So yeah, pretty solid overall. Max Ice from We Are Deadly, probably one of the better teams, if not the best team in the league. Yeah, pretty solid player. I think what they mentioned is that he's also master on who plays in master rank on multiple roles from mid lane as well. From what I've heard, and so a pretty solid all-round player. Nutley 99. Sean sung high praises of the guy. Said he's insane, pretty strong. He gave him a lot of trouble when he played against in the sack, and a very solid player overall. So yeah, that's why he gets the second place. Um, the Gilly Boy ranks number one in the jungle tier list, and from what was pretty much said, he's a very strong player. Just absolutely menace in the jungle. Pretty much synonymously ranked number one across all our guests. Then we can move on to mid lane. Fuzzy Bomber 7, again, the problem with Team Solo Farm, not too much information is known about him. Uh, yeah, pretty much that. And so he ranks last due to that. Nox, by far, was sort of as the worst mid laner. Um, yeah, I mean, just a lot of aspects were discussed that needed to be improved on. Jack Wright, he was sung fairly high by Clover. He thought he should be perhaps even fourth or even maybe third, but Sean and Eddie thought he had improvements to make, and so he's currently ranked fifth in the mid lane tier. Is Cassin, a guy that was described by Don Doug as an FPO player if he wanted to, if he tried hard enough, if you want to try hard, pretty much. But yeah, for us, we ranked him fourth because, well, I mean, not so much information is on, and we people thought that the players above him, that are ranked above him, are do a fair bit better. Outless comes next from Shalom Jack, pretty solid player, uh, very strong in lane as well, and it's like a solid all-around mid laner. Slandier, sorry, I'm butchering this name, from We Are Deadly. Um, pretty top tier contender. Um, though Sean said he did manage to play quite well against him in lane, especially. But yeah, that's about as much as talked about him. But again, very strong player, pretty stacked row mid lane that plays in the upper half. And Ready Salted Sean was ranked first overall in the mid lane. Pretty absolutely a menace in the mid lane. By far, I think the best mid laner from what was discussed, and pretty much well deserved first place. Then we can move on to support. Dutcher, yeah, pretty much the same fate as some of his other Team Soul Farm teammates, but yeah, not too much known as about him, so therefore he automatically gets to rank 7, unfortunately. Maybe they should show up to their games so we can have more clear information when we invite people on the show, and also we can get stats. Um, Other than that, Neono from the In Squad, yeah, pretty good new addition to the player, but unfortunately, not too much known is about him. Not too much is known about him. Nobody really actually had any great recollections of what he had done in games and against him, so we couldn't really rank him much higher than sixth. Other mess from in the sack, yeah, a solid player. Nothing too bad, nothing too great. Just an all-round okay player. He's gonna do his job, but not as good as some of the people ranked above him. Which, for example, is Callum Ward. Callum Ward from Fort Fiesta, ranked fourth overall in the support tier list. Very strong player again. Very good at peeling, is what Sean said. He's the best to peel people, and he apparently absorbs a lot of ultimates during team fights and lets his team win the team fights that way. Another one we have above him is Positive Vibe. Unfortunately, a player that is no longer going to play for you for us to do real life commitments. But from what everybody said, he seems like a very strong support player, creating a lot of pressure, and also being able to stand out as a great performer on youth rods. So uh, one of their better players for sure, and he gets deserved third place. A Notorious from We Are Deadly gets the second place. Um, Very strong player as well. Very strong dual lane with his hunter counterpart Brock. Um, yeah, pretty much very top two for sure in the league. Then we have from Shalom Jack Jamal. Jamal on top of supports. Very good player. He was described as a very good player that can play multiple roles at a very high level as well. A bit of a tilter perhaps, though he was mentioned that he does sometimes get angry with his teammates. But other than that, yeah, a very strong player all around. Um, he gets angry with his teammates when they're not performing up to the standards he holds them. So yeah, perhaps a bit of a weakness in his character there, but for sure very strong player. Then we can move on to hunters. Last place, unfortunately, is for SK Maestro, who Clover described him as a very solid player, but the big problem with his part is he's quite passive in lane, doesn't really get advantages through fighting or through farming better. He did say he's very good in team fights, but unfortunately, due to his passiveness, he falls quite far down. But it's a very stacked row in the hunter section. Then we have a newcomer in Don Doug. Don Doug for sure one of the best hunters, if not the best hunter in the previous division, which was he was in Divine. If you saw the tier list from before, yeah, he was ranked number one for sure, and he was a very strong contender in that tier list. But well, as you climb up, people get stronger and stronger. So we thought that he would be within the lower end of the tier list for now. So he's ranked sixth overall in the hunters tier list. Then above him, Demi, a player we don't know much about, but unfortunately, due to again Team Solo Farm player, not too much was known about him by I guess because they did not show up for the games against him. But what was really interesting is he's considered he's their start player on the website, so he has probably the best stats on his team. Um, and they did have quite strong performances against some of the top teams, so I think it's definitely deserved that he gets a bit higher in the tier list. But of course, we will definitely want to revisit this tier list in the future and get some updated opinions in when more people have played against Team Soul Force. But unfortunately, again, due to the circumstances, they can't be ranked quite high. For all we know, they're some of the best players in the league, but just not enough is known about them, unfortunately. I just is from in the sack again a pretty solid player. Very. I mean, he was considered like a solid player and a mid-tier player. Unfortunately, though, he's not as good as the people above him. Um, Saitama Senpai, again a very strong player. And what said about him is he's of course a console player, and he's very good, but not as good as the two that stand up above everybody else. Which in number two we ranked Brock back. Brock was ranked second mainly because of Mirkom's advantage of using uh, PC playing on PC rather, and while Brock has to play on console, and that's certainly a decently big advantage, especially when it comes to the hunter role, right? So very important for that one to hit auto attacks. But they both are very close in skill from what our guest shared, and but due to the slight advantage that the keyboard and mouse gives over controller, it was thought that Mirkon for sure takes the first place while Brock stays second. But they're as I said again, very close in skill level. Yeah. So that's the quick recap I had for you guys. Unfortunately, due to the problems with the recording, we couldn't really get the proper tier list done as we wanted to. We had the guest having great discussions on here. But yeah, unfortunately, it was an issue that appeared, and really sad that I cannot bring to you guys the great discussions we had. But yeah, it is what it is. Unfortunately, this is gonna do it for this episode. It's gonna be quite a bit shorter due to the lack of the discussions, as I said. But yeah, again, apologies for that problem. Uh, it's definitely gonna be resolved next time. And yeah, we're as we said earlier in the show, we're moving to bi-weekly podcasts. Because we just don't have enough information to go for every week, and we much rather create like more concise and more interesting podcasts with more content than a bit more bland ones. Just so we have a podcast out on the week. This one was gonna be a great one for sure, but unfortunately, recording problems. Yeah, it kind of fell through, unfortunately. But yeah, anyways, thank you so much, guys, for joining this episode. It's quite a bit weird due to the problems, but yeah. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. Yeah, we're gonna be moving to bi-weekly, so make sure to subscribe and check out the Smite Noob Twitter to see what's gonna when the podcasts are gonna be releasing, because it might not even be bi-weekly. It might be a bit more spread out when we have a good idea to show. But anyways, yeah, thank you so much, you guys, for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye bye.